Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you are. This is a new format, it's a new way, it's a new beginning. So, welcome everybody to the first episode of the Couple School podcast. Now, that voice in the background is none other than the stunning, the lady of self-love herself, Charmaine Lawrence. How are you doing?
Hi, how are we doing? I'm good, thank you. You ready for this?
Yes, I am. I think I'm prepped. I think I've done enough sort of psyching myself up for it. I think I've done enough reading of various different bits and bobs and things and so on. So yeah, I think we're here. So the first episode we wanted to take a look at, we're starting with the end in mind. So we were looking at ending relationships and how it's done, how it could be done, how it could possibly be done, and all the bits and pieces in between. So, first question we were talking about was respect through the end. What does that mean to you?
I mean, I guess for me, it's the difficulty that we have sometimes with making sure that when we break up from a relationship, how we will maintain that respect all the way to when we part completely. Mm-hmm. Because there's always that middle ground of like it's ended, and it depends how you end a relationship as well. Because if you think about it, if it's like okay, it's a mature conversation, it's just not going to work out, then you might plan out how this is going to work, especially if children are involved. Yeah. But if it's really like some big blow up argument, that is also really difficult to maintain the respect to the end. So it just depends on how the relationship ends, whether or not everybody can maintain respect to the end. I don't know, what do you think?
I see where you're coming from, but I endorse the respect to the end, and I think that very, very often when people assume that a relationship ends, and I don't see it that way. Mm-hmm. I don't think that once you start in a relationship it ever ends really. The rules just change. You know, you can't go back to how it was before you saw someone naked, or before a first kiss, or before anything. Yeah. You know, when you see someone that you've had interaction with on a relationship kind of basis, you know, you still get that feeling, that butterfly in your stomach when you see them walk into a room, and that's also going to be guided based on how that relationship ended. Yeah. But I think the key to maintaining the respect from the end is to understand that relationships don't end; they just change. Yeah. You know, and if you look at it in that respect, then the rules still apply, and although those rules may be also amended. You know, so when it comes to you maintaining the respect towards the end, you need to remember that the situation, whether it was that sparked the end, or sparked you to say, right, well, this relationship's not for me. That was just that situation. It wasn't the whole of the relationship, and it certainly isn't the relationship moving forward. At some point, you have to stop hating.
Yes, I agree with everything you're saying. So I agree. No, I do. I agree with everything you're saying, but I do think that from a lot of the people, like we're both coaches, we've both coached people before, and I think like sometimes there's some people that are so, they're not able to do that, and I know that I'm very aware of my emotions, and I'm very emotionally intelligent, so I'm very good at, and I'm a planner, you know that, so I'm like, I plan how everything's going to work out, but not everybody's like that, and if someone's guided by their emotions, how do they maintain the respect to the end? How do they do that?
I think when it comes to, don't forget, this relationship with two halves. So I think you can only be responsible for what you can be responsible for, and that's the first thing. That's the first thing to understand. You're not responsible for the other person. You know, you're responsible for how you react to the situation and what that person is presenting you with. If that person is full of hate, then you have to accept that. You know what? We're not ready to have that conversation right now, and therefore the respect, then turns and focuses on you respecting yourself through to the end, and through the end and then ongoing. Until that person is in a situation where they are ready to have that kind of communication. Now, particularly when there are kids involved, then my wish would be, and as I've had with people, as you said, with both coaches, people I've had in front of me, and we've tried to dissect this, is for them to understand that the messy bit, the bit that caused all of the disruption, that's an adult thing. Yeah. It's not to do with the children, it's not to do with the relationship, that's to do with the two of you. Yeah. And you need to try and find a way to put that to the side so you can find a way forward for the kids' sake. You know? So I think you have to focus. The focus needs to be on the respect on the people that are willing to accept it at the time it's going, at the time that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
But also to bear in mind that at some point from the two of you are going to have to get to a point where you can sit around the table and have a discussion about throwing spaghetti at each other.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, in my experience and also the things that I speak to people about when it comes to respect, I think it's just about what do you want it to look like?
Mm-hmm.
Like what do you want it to look like, and what do you want the end result to be? Like, and if the end result is that you just kind of want to get out and just say, okay, like this is what it is, especially if you've got kids.
Yeah.
So if you've got children together, you kind of really have to deal with that person. Like, you have to deal with that person. So for me, it's like, what do I want that to look like? So I always feel like, and when I'm speaking to people, I'm like, well, what do you want it to look like? Not what that person's going to do, but what do you want to do in order for it to be the way you want it to be? And it's not always going to work out the way, because as you said, you're only in control of yourself. So you need to do what it is that you need in order to get you. And sometimes, you know, we're women, we can manipulate things to happen when we want it to happen. You know?
You can see a smile on her face when she's saying it. Yeah, 100%.
You know, so it's kind of like, that's kind of it for me. I don't think it's that hard to maintain respect to the end, as long as you really kind of deal with your emotional trauma from whatever's happened and however it's broken down. And I think again that's about, you know, me, self and all that. It's if you're focused on self and your self-worth, then respect is going to be easy. If you allow all of those emotions to dictate how you move, then it's going to be a failure, in my opinion.
No, 100%. And that's why I said the focus on the respect side of things needs to be directed at yourself first.
Yeah.
Particularly if you are at the rough end of a traumatic breakup, you know, or you're the one that's had the hurt placed on them, and that's why the breakup has occurred. You've got to find a way to make sure that you respect yourself through your dealing with the said situation and said individual, and not, for lack of a better phrase, not necessarily bowing down to the other person's level, but making sure that you are maintaining your own levels independent of the other person and independent of the situation. As you said, taking a look at how you want it to end, visualizing what you want the end product to look like after the storm. The storm that you're dealing with at the moment is he cheated, she cheated, so-and-so did this, so-and-so did that. Yeah, okay, that's the storm, but at some point in time that storm will pass. You know, and what do you want it to look like after the winds have calmed down and the lightning stopped flashing all over the place and the thunder stopped rolling? After everyone stopped shouting, what do you want that to look like? And then accept the path on the way to that. It may be that if you're dealing with a particular volatile individual, it may be that period is extended, you know, but you have to accept that because that's them. That's not something that's within your control.
Yeah, agreed. I love that.
Yeah. So we've also, what we've got, respect for parent and children and co-parenting. I love this.
Oh, the joys of co-parenting.
Oh yes, oh yes.
We both have experience, right?
Oh, fantastic. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. For those of you that don't know, there's two children of mine that get aired very, very, very frequently, which is Matthias and Xavier. But I do have another three, so I was glutton for punishment. I had 5 of varying ages, which does mean that the conversations throughout the day are quite varied. You know, the 21, then 14, then 10, then 4, then 7 months. But equally so, that obviously there are, Karen is my current partner, but there is also Imani's mum, and there's also Kai and Zaina's mum, and co-parenting on various different levels. You know, you've really got to find the respect.
Yeah.
You've really got to find the respect. You've really got to pick your battles. You've really got to understand who you are amongst that. And when I say that, I mean that very much in the sense of not that you're stamping on the other person. It's giving the other person space, even if you think they're wrong.
Yeah, I love that you said pick your battles, because I think that was something someone said to me, and I was like, okay, really, like, is it necessary for me to really go, like, is it necessary for me to do this? No. Is it necessary for me to have this conversation? What is the end result of this conversation? Am I going to get what I want out of it? No. So why am I going to have it? So I think the same. For me, I have 2 girls with my ex-husband, but I'm also in a new relationship, and so I'm like, you know, stepmom, so blended family. So seeing it from both parts as well. So it's an interesting ride. But interesting ride. Co-parenting now is a breeze, but in the beginning, finding that dynamic was really difficult because I just didn't really know what I expected. So we had a very mature breakup. It was very much like, okay, so this is not working. Okay, what we're going to do? We're going to separate at this time. We actually had a date. There was a date.
Okay. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
We had a date. We're like,
is there a journal?
There's a moving out date.
Okay.
Okay, and then when we move out, we're going to do this, and this is how we're going to do it. We had a whole plan. I was like, if I'm not going to have a successful marriage, I'm definitely going to have a successful divorce and co-parenting situation.
Okay.
I was very, very clear on what that plan looked like. He wasn't so clear.
Okay, but he was informed.
He was informed, but he wasn't so clear.
Okay.
And so it just was a bit of a rough ride because I was like, you're not sticking to the plan. It needs to go like this and this. Like, I don't understand why you're going deviating off the plan. This is your days. Like, why are you changing your days? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And it was, for me, because I had a plan of how success was going to look.
Yeah.
And for him, he was like, this is just not working out for me. And rather than us coming back and having a conversation and looking at how we can work for both of us, I was sticking to the plan and he was like, I'm not doing that. And so it was just back and forth. And then someone said, I don't even know who it was now, but someone said, you really need to just pick your battles. Like, is it that important? And I was like, it really isn't that important because I'm not actually going to get my way. So let's just pick and choose what works and what doesn't work. Yeah.
Picking your battles, I think, is the biggest piece of advice I could give to anyone that's going through a breakup, whether they're kids or not, but particularly if there are. You need to remember that whether you're the person that's doing the majority of the hurt or not, there's hurt all around. And whether someone's actually articulating that, particularly us as guys, that we're not used to saying to people, this actually hurts.
No.
We're not used to elaborating on what that hurt is, how it hurts, how it's impacted this thing, the other, and what the ripple effect is. The only emotion men are really used to dealing with is anger, because that's the one that we're well versed and practiced it. So that's our default, it's our go-to. So a lot of the times when guys get angry, so to speak, it's not because they're angry. It's 9 times out of 10, really, it's because they're hurt and they don't know how to articulate that and don't know how to explore it. And so it spills out in a very messy fashion all over the place, along with their man ego trying to make us still look like the man, even though the plane is wildly out of control, flying down towards the nosediving towards the earth at a ridiculous rate and on fire, but we're still standing strong in the middle of the aisle. It's hard, and I think that when you're talking about picking your battles, the main thing for me was going, okay, as you said, do I need to have this conversation? Am I sparking this argument out of ego? What's the end result here? The end result is to have the children experience a happy life. Yeah. That's it. And if we're not doing this thing together and we're doing this thing apart, that's still the goal. Yeah. And every now and again I have to sort of slap my face and go, that's the goal. Yeah. Winning the argument's not the goal. Yeah. The goal is maintaining a space that the children can grow and learn and love it and know that they are loved it. Not to grow up in this volatile space where it's just about either mum or dad winning said argument on any given day. Yeah. And that was a real thing about picking the battles for me, is making sure that not every day's a battle. I'm not looking at it like that. Well, it can feel like that sometimes,
No, agreed.
So what do you feel about getting over your ex and moving on?
This is a tricky one because when I have conversations with my girlfriends about this, they say to me that I have a very masculine viewpoint on this. Like, for me,
that's interesting.
Yeah, but I don't think it is. I think I'm just very emotionally intelligent. Like, I'm just kind of like, okay, this is not working. Yeah. It's going to hurt for a while, and then everything will be fine. That's how my brain works. I don't have this whole, I will deal with my whirlwind. I like to slot in when my whirlwind's going to happen because I've got working kids. I don't have time to have like a breakdown in the middle of the day.
So you're saying, okay, so you're looking at it again, okay, let me put this extra for spreadsheet. At 6 o'clock, we're going to fall apart. And at 7 o'clock, then I'm going to be back together because I've got to get the kids ready for school. And I've got 10 minutes spare at lunchtime, so I'm a fall apart then as well.
I'm not even joking. That's exactly how. That's exactly how I would do it.
Okay.
I work in a school with children, so I don't have time to have emotional breakdowns because these children are having emotional breakdowns as it is because they haven't done their homework or whatever else happened.
Yeah.
So for me, it was just like, okay, I did everything I could possibly do to save my marriage, in my opinion. And I was like, okay, I've done everything. There's not anything else I can do.
Okay.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Let's just leave it here. He agreed. And that for me was the end of it. It was the toughest thing I have ever done. And my friends would be like, really? Now they say, I never even knew that you were feeling those emotions. I was like, yeah, of course, but I had things to do. I have to get up, I have to get girls ready for school, I have to do the school run, I have to get to work. Then I get home, do the housework, put them to sleep, and I'll be like, I feel absolutely terrible. Then I'll be have a bit of a cry. And then like I'll watch some rubbish TV show that would make me cry more. Then I'll go to sleep, I wake up and start the day again. But I always had in my head that eventually you're going to get past it, because my thing was I started researching Google, grief, like the 7 stages of grief. Okay, where am I now? Okay. That's how my brain works, because I'm a planner and that's what I always do. And since I was young, I had anxiety, and so how I work with that anxiety is making sure that I have an idea of how things are going to happen. And so now, every single thing, I'm just like, okay, so this has come to an end. Then what's next? And then what's next? So for me, the 7 stages of grief was amazing, because I was like, okay, so I think I'm in this phase now.
Yeah.
I think I'm in this phase now. No, I'm not over it, but I'm here. I'm at the depression stage now, guys. So just allow me to be down. And that's kind of where I was, and so that's how it worked for me. But I know, like, for others, it might not be like that.
I'm glad you touched on the anxiety sector, section, label, whichever one you choose to use. I think different people deal with anxiety very, very differently.
Yeah.
So, like you say, you're a planner. I am very much a systems-oriented person.
Yeah.
I create systems to deal with things that I don't like the sound of, smell of, or what have you, that operate around it. And there's systems that I can do repetitively so that said situation doesn't affect me. Doesn't mean I've actually dealt with it. It just means I've built a system around it.
Yeah.
Now, what I've realised in my latter years is that I was probably one of the most insecure people that anyone has ever met throughout the entirety of my life, and probably into the last 10 years. I second guessed everything I did. I second guessed every decision I made. I always thought I was the worst. I thought people were chatting nonsense about me left, right, and centre. And in my relationships, I always thought it was my fault.
Yeah.
Even though I did, my process was that I get very much, you'll say, I get to the end of the relationship and I'm like, cool, okay, have I done everything that I can possibly do in order to save it, or that I'm prepared to do? Yes. Okay, which parts of the relationship are mine to hold on to that are my things that I need to deal with, which parts are theirs, that's fine. So I had a very systematic way of ending a relationship, packaging it up and parking it, and then moving on to the next one. But when it comes to dealing with the actual emotion side of it, that also got parked, and it just started to build up to the point where I had to unpack it at one point and go, what does this ugly picture look like? And sort of rearrange things into a way in which that I could understand things. But my way of dealing with anxiety are things that I hate not being in control. So when I'm faced with a situation that I'm not in control, I seek control, or I put it in there as rapidly as I can do. Very much the same way that you do with yours. You go, right, okay, well, let's Google it, put a plan in place. Mine is, okay, let's find a system that we can use that means this shit ain't gonna happen again, and we can deal with this and then move things forward. And I think that was that trigger reaction of mine is what's enabled me to move from one relationship to the next after, and different situations in life, and appear very much on the face of it like I'm moving effortlessly, despite behind the facade this panicked kind of thing going on to try and piece it all together again, but based on the systems that I created around it. And I think for anyone that's listening to this, that's maybe going through going through a messy breakup or going through a hard time in a relationship, you've got kids and you're wondering how the hell do I do this, or you're faced with, like I was speaking to someone the other day, hitting 35 and the possibility of starting again. First thing to take from this, as Charmaine said, and I saw this on an Instagram post the other day, it too shall pass. It's the biggest phrase ever. At some point in time, what you're going through is going to be your past. And both you and anyone else that you describe it to will also look at it and go, right, well, that was mad, but you made it through.
Yeah.
So don't think that what you're going through right now is everything. Research it, like what Charmaine did, right? 7 stages of grief. And the thing is, the 7 stages of grief is it's a parable. It's a rule. It's what everybody goes through with every form of grief that you've got.
Yeah.
Some people stay in different phases of it for a longer period than others, but essentially we all have to go through those different bits in order to get to the point where you're not over it, but learn how to live with it. You know, so number one, don't feel like you're alone. Number two, don't feel like you're some sort of alien that, you know, this is happening to me, I don't know what I'm doing. You know, take your time to research it and take your time to process it in your own way.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's so important to understand that you can feel those emotions, just don't sit in it forever.
Yeah.
But definitely feel the emotions and go through it, because if you bottle it up, at some point it will come out. So for me, like I said, I sat there at kids are in bed, okay, now is a good time to just let it all out. But if you don't do that and you keep holding it, it will come out, and it will probably come out in new relationships, because when you're single, you don't have anything to work against, you're just single doing your own thing. But then when you go into a new relationship, those emotions that you've bottled up before could easily just come out at that.
Fellas, I hope you're listening, because I'm a directly at you, because I know we're really, really bad at this kind of stuff. You know, bottling stuff up isn't it's not a sign of being in control. It's certainly not a man kind of thing. Women tend to be better at this sort of exploring the hurt than what us guys allow ourselves to do. But we still hurt.
Yeah.
You know, we still hurt. I mean, there isn't a relationship that I've come out of that hasn't hurt severely in some respects. And I wish that I had take the time out to deal with it and process and feel those emotions, because inevitably I ended up doing it anyway. So you can't run away from it. The 7 stages of grief also could be the 7 stages of leaving a relationship, because ironically it's the same thing. It's the loss of an individual that was of significance to your life. You know, and admitting that they were of significance is one step, and understanding that the fact that they're not there is another, and so on and so on and so on. So if you are going through a particular not awkward time, particularly my guys that are listening, take the time out to explore the heart. You know, it's not as a disingenuous place as you think it is. You know?
Yeah, agreed.
So learning to love yourself after the love has left. I love this subject here.
Well, this is interesting because this is my thing.
Oh yeah.
You know me and my self-love. Although I think men have a harder time of learning to love themselves. Actually, no, I'll take that right back. I think men love themselves in a different way than women love themselves. The process is different.
Okay.
I don't always feel like it's the same. So like when I speak to so I don't really coach men anymore, but when I have done in the past, men do something very different to women. So women go internally first, and then they come out externally. So they'll deal with the inner stuff first, the inner work, and then the inner work spares them to do the outer work, which is I need to look good, I need to get my money up, I need to do that. Whereas I find men do the outer work first, and they leave the inner work to right at the end when they have no choice left. Then they go in to do the inner work. I don't know, what do you think? That's what I've noticed.
I think you're right to a degree.
Yeah.
I think that when it comes to a breakup and anything that involves emotions that might cause a tear, us guys run away.
Yeah.
And I think guys only deal with the inner work when the inner work has got to the point where it can't be ignored.
Yeah.
That's usually 3-4 relationships after the relationship has actually happened, and that's where I was directing my the comment on the last one of saying, fellas, this is directed at you to explore the heart, like explore the hurt. You know, women, you guys are better at it, hands up, better at it than us when it comes to that sort of thing, because at the end of the relationship, you do take the time to delve into the pain and go through all of that, all the stuff that's to do with it, and investigate X, Y, Z. guys, we tend to try and just shrug it off and go, okay, right, on to the next one.
Yeah.
You know, get a fresh fade, new Everex jacket, whatever it is it may be, and then off you go.
Yeah.
Whereas when a relationship, when someone of significance leaves you, the steps are always the same.
Yeah.
They never change. You know, you have to grieve the person that was once there. You have to grieve the situation that was once there. You have to investigate your feelings around the fact that that person is now vacant, and then start to piece yourself back together again before you can actually move on to the next.
Yeah.
And a lot of relationships, I think, fail because the guy didn't take enough time to actually heal himself. What
Yeah.
he did was he took his bruised peaches from the last shopping centre and took them over to the next supermarket along the line and expected them to be fresh. No, they've got maggots now. They've got maggots. They've got problems. They've got problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to self-love and looking at, you know, after the breakup and looking at yourself, I think one of the major things is basically being very self-aware on where you are, what you are, who you are, where you're going. And I think women tend to do that a lot, but we also have bigger support networks than you guys. We have each other. We speak a lot about the things that we go through. I mean, apart from the barbershop.
No, I disagree with that.
Really?
Yeah, because I think
Guys don't really talk about it though, do they? They don't really talk about the depth of it.
That's the problem. They don't talk about it. Like if I was to put an SMS out on my phone right now and say, you know what, someone's put a brick through my window, I could have 10 very angry guys standing right outside within seconds.
Yeah.
You know? But if I was to say, it sounds even weird trying to put that together, that if I was putting an SOS text out to my friends going, oh my God, this woman's left me and my heart's broken, you ain't getting the same response.
Why though?
Because,
why do you not do that?
Because we're not taught that we can explore those emotions, you know? Like crying in front of your male friends. That's a deep thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, so, I mean, I've done it.
What should men do then?
Not find your group, but find your one at least. You need to have your Cody, that guy that you can break down in front of, because crying is part of life, grief is part of life, loss is part of life. You know, so you have to have that person that you can speak on that level and share those kind of emotions to, and just break down in front of.
Yeah.
You know, I think men, we get caught up with, you know, we have to be the Superman, we have to be this strong guy, we have to be, you know, we're the protectors, you know, Tarzan, beat your chest, all that jazz. You know, and yeah, you know, it's good to be that, but let's not forget that Tarzan gets hurt. You know, watch the movie, it happens. You know, Tarzan gets hurt. When they gets beaten after every war, you've got scars. And I think that's the thing you need to remember, is the war isn't always just your fists. A lot of the time when we're dealing with it, the war is words, the war is emotions, the war is hurt you're picking up from someone betraying you or mistrusting you, or, you know, we have scars and we have to take time to heal. They can't be fast forward.
Yeah.
You know, at all. Now we did have inner peace and what that means to you on here. So let's touch on that briefly before we wrap up, because we are clocking up some time.
Oh wait, okay. So inner peace for me, I think you have that when you end a relationship. There's always that place where you feel free. For me, inner peace is that place where you feel free. You feel like you have passed all of that. The dark cloud is gone and everything is figured out. Like in terms of me, I feel like I'm at that space. I mean, I've been at that space since lockdown. We've been good since lockdown.
Okay. That was good. I'm not going to ask any details. Apparently lockdown was really good.
It was good for us, like literally in terms of co-parenting and moving on. And literally we split ages ago, but in terms of real understanding of what we wanted, it happened in lockdown. And I don't know if that's because lots of people were passing away and it was just this madness, and so his relationship with his daughters were closer, they spent more time together. And I didn't, like, when I asked for things, like, you know, can you do this? Can you do the school run? Everything was yes, 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 yes. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And since then, it's like that time that he's had with his daughters has made me feel really comfortable, not because of the fact that he's saying yes, but because the girls are really happy. Because they are spending such good quality time with their dad. It's not just, okay, I'm just popping over to dad's, and they're spending real quality time. And I think for us, COVID really did that. It really allowed him to kind of see that I need to spend more quality time with my girls. And plus one of our girls is going off to uni soon as well. So I think for me, relationship with the end of the relationship was one thing, but real peace came when I realised that the girls were so secure with both the relationship with me and their dad.
Okay.
That to me just made me feel great.
I think it's interesting you touched on that made me feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the key bit about inner peace. Is inner peace is personal.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's got their own different version of inner peace. Some people's inner peace will be behind the steering wheel, driving recklessly fast around corners and what have you. Some in an aeroplane so high that you can't hear anything.
Yeah.
You know, inner peace is, I think for me, inner peace represents your space. Yeah. Your space where you feel completely and utterly at ease.
Yeah. And
just touching on the COVID thing, how many people I've spoken to that have COVID has been a welcome point to their relationships, whether that be the current relationships or previous ones. And they all asked why, and it's quite simply, the world has, since World War II, the world has never known a uniformed pause. Yeah. Ever. We all had to simultaneously push that pause button and sit in your yard. Yeah. And yes, there were people dying, but it gave you that pause for thought. The rat race wasn't running as fast. We weren't going to work. All of our usual routines and sub-routines that we rely on to cover up that stuff that we don't want to deal with and put that other person over there that we don't want to talk to. You had to face it. Yeah. You know, you had to face it. You had to deal with it, and it created. People were forced to actually mend bridges. Were forced to connect with people that they haven't spoken to in a while. They're forced to take a look at themselves in the mirror and go, actually, I don't really like that part. So, but now I've got the time to fix it. So that's work. Exactly, yeah. You know? And there's this thing called like they're giving me money so I can stay at home. So I don't have that right. Everything was forced to slow down. Yeah. You know? And I think it did the world a lot good.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think so.
You know? Well, look, that brings us to the end of episode 1. So thank you very much for listening, paying attention. I hope you're paying attention anyway, you're not sleeping back there. I'm not tempted to find you. I've got ways, I've got beans, I've got special stores. Anyway, so that was in the relationship. Just as a sort of summary note for anyone that is actually going through the end of a relationship right now. Just remember, first things first, you're not on your own. There are many people out there going through it simultaneously, and how all the rest of us have been through it at some point in our lives. Whether we've come out of it in a messy state or come out of it in a constructive state. My point is, we've all come through it. And as I said earlier on, it too shall pass. The stage that you're in right now might be ugly, it might be slightly destructive, and it may be very hurtful for you to deal with, but at some point in time, the end of the rainbow will shine through, and you will find your space where you can actually find your place again. That's us out for today and this week.
And we will see you next week.
You take care. As I always say, you stay strong, you stay focused. Peace.
Bye.